Hey folks, Kilt-Man here, Kilt-Man, at your service. Oh yes. But the eagle-eyed amongst you will have spotted something slightly awry with Kilt-Man. He's not wearing a kilt! No, he's wearing tiger-striped combats. The best camouflage in the world. Vietnam-era tiger stripes. Why am I wearing them? I'm not a kilt. Well, because if you'd seen the previous video where I was soaked to the skin, I won the Miss Wet T-shirt contest. I then had to go out again with Roxy the Wonder Husky, and we walked miles and miles and miles all around the New Brighton prom and on the beach and everywhere in the roaring wind, the tempest and the absolute lashing down rain. So when I come back again, I was soaked to the skin yet again. And I just wrenched off the kilt and I thought, put another kilt on. Because obviously, you know, I live in a kilt. And weirdly enough, amongst my tartan wall, the kilt wall as I call it, a leg of these tiger stripes poked out. And I thought, have I got like a camouflage kilt? Surely not. And I pulled on this leg and out came my old favourites, the tiger stripes. So I thought, I'm going to put them on just for old time's sake. And here they are. Anyway, I haven't summoned you all here to talk about my nocturnal fashions. Oh, no. And even though I was saying Halloween and all of Shocktober, I'm going to be covering, you know, non-stop horrors. I know at the time of recording, it's only September the 30th, but we're so close. I'm looking at the clock up there. Midnight isn't that far away. So, as far as I'm concerned, Halloween season has begun. So, without further ado, we're going to talk about the Blob. Yeah, the Blob, a great big pus-filled, gooey sack of raspberry jam which devours people. Well, that was the 1958 version, starring Steve MacQueen, who was then known as Stephen MacQueen. And it's a cult classic. It's kitsch as hell. It's a drive-in favourite, you know, but it's got the classic scene of the people in the cinema getting attacked by. It's now grown. This thing has arrived in a meteor from outer space, and it's this alien matter which will obviously grow with the more people that it ingests. And it's a great concept. But it didn't start there, because, oh no, the Blob wasn't an original concept, because it had been done twice before. Hammer had done the Quatermass experiment. Victor Carroon comes back from space, and basically with a space disease, he turns into a huge, it's not a blob, but a huge plant-like creature. But the principle's the same, that the more people he consumes, the bigger in mass this thing gets. But then, Hammer made an unofficial Quatermass movie called X the Unknown, which is a much more superior film, and I really, really love it. And it's set, I don't know if it's set up in Scotland somewhere, certainly in a rural, you know, British enclave. And the army, British army, led by good old Michael Ripper, are conducting they're conducting experiments in this countryside, this meadow, and they unwittingly unleash this bloody thing which lives down in the depths, and it's a huge blob-like substance which has homicidal tendencies and begins to dissolve and eat and consume various local inhabitants, causing a lot of mayhem along the way. And you have, you know, a scientist who is meant to be Quatermass, but he's not called Quatermass. And it's a great, great movie. I will cover that in depth at some point. And then after that, you had an Italian production called Kilty, the Immortal Monster. And this was even gorier. And this one, like, it's an ancient Mayan goddess which takes the form of an amorphous mass, this black tar-like substance, which again, you know, will corrode and erode and decay human flesh and make them into withered bone-like structures. But it's a great concept again, and a lot airier. But the Blob then came in 1958, and, you know, glorious Technicolor, you know, and it was great stuff. A sequel to it was made called Beware the Blob, or also known as Son of Blob, you know. Because of the classic nature and the cult status of this movie, it was inevitable perhaps that, you know, a remake would be on the cards. In much the same way that John Carpenter sought to remake The Thing from Another World, but with special effects which could actually deal with that kind of story, Chuck Russell and Frank Darabont tackled the 1988, exactly 30 years after the original had been made, with their version of the Blob. Chuck Russell had actually done A Nightmare on Elm Street 3 Dream Warriors, and although he'd had the idea for doing a remake of the Blob before that, and he was hoping that would be his directorial debut, that didn't happen because people in Hollywood weren't really that arsed about the idea of remaking the Blob. And then the success of Dream Warriors, which is one of the better sequels in the Elm Street franchise. It's still got some really iffy moments, but he did show a command of tension, suspense, and a great use of set pieces and special effects, and various types of special effects, visuals, stop motion, and optical effects, and he did well. Sorry, that's Roxy there, who is now, she found something on the floor, a blob-like substance on the floor. Not only does she look like the original incarnation of The Thing from John Carpenter's version, but she's now becoming blob-like as well. So they finally get the rights to do it, and they revamp it really, really well. And the thing about it is that, the Steve MacQueen character has been transformed into, well, it's meant to be a rebel. It's Kevin Dillon with one of the biggest, shaggiest mullets ever. You think this is bad? You're going to see his hair in that. And he's the leather jacket wearing biker boy. And he's obviously had problems in the past and all that. Like, the political police, which is Jeffrey Munn from The Mist with Frank Darabont, Shawshank with Frank Darabont, and The Walking Dead with Frank Darabont. He plays a local sheriff, and he's forever antagonising him because his name's Brian Flagg. This guy who's meant to be a rebel without a clue. But really speaking, he's the hero. Well, he becomes the hero of this piece, but he's not done anything bad. Everything he does, he's dead friendly with everybody, but he gets picked on all the time by authority. But he's really got a heart of gold. There's nothing wrong with the guy. You don't see him do anything wrong. Anyway, this particular blob-like thing, again, there's an old guy in the woods paying homage to the original movie, an old guy in the woods, and this hairly meteor just goes, swoops down in a great visual effect. And the old guy stupidly gets a big branch and pokes it open, this smouldering, sort of hard rock encased thing from space. Opens it, a blob-like thing gets on the end of it, clamps onto his arm. Next thing you know, he's running through the woods with this thing, bumps into Kevin Dillon, Flagg, who's trying to fix his motorbike. Flagg has this thing about trying to cross this broken bridge, this dilapidated bridge. He wants to fly across the big chasm. And at the start of the movie, you will encounter him trying to do it, and his bike develops a fault and he has to crash, and the old guy's on the other side. He's going, well done, dickhead. But Kevin Dillon then meets this guy, and the two of them hurtle off into the woods. He's trying to save him, and then he will meet the other main characters of the piece. Now, this is a film that spends a good amount of time building up the characters, and in a great Hitchcockian sort of device, you've got to know Shawnee Smith, who's gorgeous, he's a cheerleader, and Donovan Leitch, I think his name is, and it's the first date they're going on, and in the great comic moment, him and his buddy are in the chemist's, and his buddy is a bit of a player, and he's got to date himself that night, so he wants some condoms. So they're buying the condoms, and and he's making. The chemist is going, do you want normal or ribbed? And he wants, I want ribbed Trojans and all this kind of stuff. Like, well, he says, it's not for me, it's for him. And he's pointing to the guy, Donovan Leitch, who's going to be going out with the cheerleader. Well, of course, Donovan, whose name in the show I've forgotten, he turns up at the house, and then she's there ready to go out with him. And, oh, just come and meet my dad. And their dad's sitting there reading the paper. And the paper goes down. None other than the chemist, isn't it? And he's like, what are you going to do with my daughter? Ribbed. It's not even him that wanted him. So, you've built up these characters, so you've got to know the girl, you've got to know the lad who's the jock, and they will stumble into Brian Flagg and this old hermit guy with the blob on his hand, and they smack into him with the car. They all pile him into the hospital, and the idea is they're going to try and find out what the hell's going on there. The hospital's a bit understaffed, a bit of Halloween 2 kind of hospital, and but Flagg fucks off. He said, if you want me, you know where to find me. I haven't done nothing wrong. But no one seems to trust him and all this. Anyway, strange developments take place with this hermit, and the jock goes in and he sees his throat's bulging, his eyes have rolled over white, runs and gets a doctor, and they pull the sheet back, and the guy's half dissolved. The blob has eaten him and then scuttled off somewhere, or slid and slithered, however you want to describe it. So where the doctor runs off, and the doctor is none other than the guy that plays Eraserhead. Is it Henry Nance? Something like that. Another culprit. David Lynch's Eraserhead. That's the doctor. He's only in for a couple of seconds, really. And then, of course, the guy, you think that the Donovan Leitch character is going to be the hero of the piece. Much like you think Marion Crane is going to be the hero in Psycho. And then Hitchcock will pull the rug from under you, or pull the shower mat from under you, and have her sliced and diced in the shower. And you're like, but she's the star. Not anymore. And he's on the phone calling the sheriff, and all this little blobs hit the table. He looks up like that, and the fucking blob is up there on the ceiling, and it just drops on him like that. You hear this blood-curdling scream, and Shawnee Smith runs in there, and he's there, he's covered in it, he's the poster boy, and he's getting all dissolved like that, and he's like, "Argh!" And she grabs his arm like that, and his arm goes, "Argh!" Big welter of gore, and it just comes off, hits the deck, and it's like that, and she passes out. Of course, when the police all turn up, no one believes their story. It was a great big blob. The fucking bodies are half dissolved, for Christ's sake. It wasn't just, they think it's Brian Flagg, Kevin Dillon. Well, what did he kill them with? Fucking acid. What the hell did he do? So, of course, they go and get him, and they bring him in. And he's getting interrogated by Emil, the guy that in RoboCop. Very aptly, he's the guy that has a rather nasty encounter with a big, cylinder full of toxic acid, and gets all the Rob Bottin, melty body, melty fingers, melty face. You can hope he's going to get that in this, but he doesn't. But then he realised, he didn't do it. So there's something else out there. So he starts searching the woods and all this. Oh, yeah. In the meantime, the blob is growing slightly bigger, goes down the grid, goes through the sewer system. It gets the guy's other friend, the one who wanted the condoms, the ribbed ones. Another great sequence. He's there with his bed in the car, and he's trying to have a copper feel, but he's also got special drinks in the boot, or the hood, whatever you call it in America. But he slings up the hoot. The hoot. That's a mixture of hood and boot, and he's mixing all these drinks. In the meantime, the blob's got in the car. We haven't seen what it's done. Jock gets back in the car, and you're playing hard to get. You're asleep. Well, I'll just unbutton your blouse. I'll just cop a fit. Tentacles all around him. Her face turns around, her face just implodes. Next thing, it's got him. Oh, it took him out as well. So it's going to get bigger and bigger. Another guy gets sucked down a plug hole, but literally down a plug hole. His whole body goes in, his legs are getting twisted round, his head's been squeezed in. So it ramps up the gore. It definitely ramps up the amount of victims and the sheer gore that's in it. But it also, it subverts the plot. This thing has come from space, but it's us that put it in space. Because next thing you know, these chemical suited M16 wielding, authority soldier type scientists in unmarked vans with helicopters and all sorts submerge the woods. They find this thing again, and they encounter, because now Brian Flagg and the girl Shawnee Smith, again, her name in it I have forgotten. You knew there's little looks between the two of them, even when her first date was still alive and unblobified. there's little looks that kind of give the game away. You know, you two are going to have to end up getting together. And of course they do, and they encounter this rogue military, you know, outfit. And you learn that the Blob itself was not a cosmic creature. It was a germ warfare bacteriological agent which has been manufactured by man, and then it's obviously gained a sentience of its own whilst being part of this satellite, and it's come crashing back down to Earth, and now they want to try and contain it. But their idea of containment is very akin to the military's idea of dealing with the living dead in Return of the Living Dead. I.e., this one, people are expendable. The people who live in the town, they don't really matter. You know, we need to keep this thing. Of course, once it's got into the air, the sewer system, they think they can trap it down there. But of course, various characters contrive to end up in the sewers, and they're being pursued by the Blob. They cover the manhole covers up, like, and it's just, it's alligator. You've seen alligator, but the giant alligator down there, and you've seen Chud. Chud's a little bit similar as well. Cannibalistic humanoid underground dwellers. You know, the film's not as good as its reputation seems to imply, but it's still got a lot of the same elements where it's toxic waste and it's pollution. It's this, you know, weird stuff which is obviously affecting people and turning them into cannibalistic underground dwellers. But lots of stuff happens in the sewer system, and the same in the Blob. This version also has another homage after the old homeless guy finding it, you know, in the woods. You've also got the attack on the cinema, in which large-scale slaughter takes place. You've got Candy Clark in there as well, a veteran of so many genre movies. So unbelievably cute, and she's older in this, obviously, and she's the one who gets attacked in the phone booth, and she's trying to call the sheriff, Jeffrey Munn, and as she's in there, the Blob just completely encases the telephone box, and she's on the phone trying to call him, and she sees his body's inside the thing, inside the Blob, and his eyes are going, "Argh." You see the sheriff's badge, and you think, oh god, it got him as well, shit. And then in a great sequence where it's actually a doll, and the camera's looking down through the top of the telephone kiosk, it's like 4 tsunamis of pink red goop just goes whoosh, smashes through all sides of the phone kiosk, and this doll, which is actually representing, you know, Candy Clark, gets fucking swept up in it, and you're like, whoa, god, it's horrible, genuinely horrible. You've got this rogue priest as well, because just like in the original Blob, they realised that it's cold that the Blob doesn't like. So if you freeze the thing, you know, you've kind of defeated it. Well, you've got to keep it frozen, obviously. And in the diner where Candy Clark was working, and Brian Flagg, I was going to call him Randall Flagg, then that's the stand, isn't it? Brian Flagg and Shawnee Smith have begun to join forces here, and then a Blob attack takes place. They all get separated. He manages to drag her to safety in the chiller, you know, the walk-in chiller, freezer compartment, and the Blob won't come in, like, but bits of it get frozen and form these beautiful little crystal-like things. Well, this priest will find these, and he's preaching, you know, the raptures and all this sort of stuff, like, and, you know, Judgment Day, but he's seen the Blob as well, and he's like, but he scoops up these little, like, sort of frozen blobites, globules, puts them in a little jar for later use. Blob 2, you know, which never actually happened. But this is a film where it spends quite some time building up the characters, setting the scene for the town. One of the opening shots is of a really great sequence showing a deserted town. And you just think, what's happened there? Is this the aftermath of a Blob attack? What's going on? It's just eerily deserted, with Michael Honig, who was for a good spell of time was a member of Tangerine Dream. It's his score you can hear behind us now, and that's electronic but with a bit of a brass section as well, and it's a really good score. It's nice, eerie, and 80s sci-fi sort of sound to it. I like it a lot. Well, his eerie music plays over this opening sequence, this montage of these deserted streets, and then gradually the camera will pan over to a football stadium, American football, and everyone's there because it's the town live for this sort of thing. So And it's just a clever way of setting it up, and then you get to meet all these characters. And even though this is it's still low budget, a low budget shocker, it takes its time to actually cement and deliver some layers of personality to these characters. So even though on the page they're probably, you've got Brian Flagg, who's the town rebel, except he's not. He's really got a heart of gold, and he hates authority, but he'll save anybody given half the chance. So, he's not that bad at all. And you've got Shawnee Smith, the cheerleader, who's also one of the gutsiest heroines that you got in 80s cinema. Everyone always cites Ripley, Sigourney Weaver. Of course they do. And, Laurie Strode in Halloween, because they battle on, Well, doesn't do much battling in Halloween 2, but she battles like hell in the first one. But Shawnee Smith, until you've seen her atop a snowmaker, which comes in handy at the end, with an M16 and the Blob's devouring everything in the town, and she's going, "Come on, you son of a bitch!" And she's fucking giving it loads. She tries to save her own butt, the first date, and pulls the arm off him, but she's fearless. Her kid brother and his friend have snuck into the cinema to watch, I think it's, Holiday Camp Massacre or something like that. A pure Friday the 13th rip-off. And of course, when the Blob makes its attack, she goes in there against all the crowds to go and get her brother back. And in the end, they have to make their way out and go into manhole cover and go into the sewers. And of course, this thing's pursuing them down there all the time, And when the little lad, the film's not afraid to do some shocking moments. It kills what you think's the lead character really quickly, and horribly as well. When they're trying to climb up these pipes, that's a ladder, isn't it? But these pipes are like that, up these pipes, and a kid brother's at the top. This lad falls off, and the Blob's down there in the sludgy sewer water. So she fucking dives in to go and get him, and she's diving underwater to get him, and she's fearless. Of course, the film goes there. The kid gets blobified. He goes, and he's like, what, a 10-year-old kid, and he's all, Ugh! It doesn't care. It pulls no punches. There is a moggy you see in it, a little stray cat, which you encounter in that opening eerie scene where the streets are all deserted. There's just the cat going there, and you do see the cat later on in that chiller compartment where they hid, and the Blob first realised, oh shit, I don't like the cold. The cat's there licking the jam. Symbolically, he's Brian with a big Docker Zook sort of thing, has sliced open a jar of strawberry jam, and the cat's seen licking it. Now, I really, really always thought, oh, that cat's going to get it. You're going to see the cat in there. Well, you don't. It doesn't kill the cat. And there's no dogs in it either, so there's no dogs in jeopardy, for the record. But it's a great movie. It has plenty of action in it. That sequence of Brian Flagg trying to cross that bridge, at some point he's going to have to do that. And he's being pursued by it's kind of a crazy sequence. There's a helicopter going after him, and there's these guys on these dune buggy type things, but they've all got chemical suits on, and they're in like a Land Cruiser or a pickup, all firing M16s at him, and he reaches that bit on the bridge, fucking spins around, fucking goes for it, and of course he makes that leap at the same time as two other vehicles don't do it, and they go tumbling over into the chasm. The helicopter above seems to conveniently lose him though, which really speaking it shouldn't do. But so you've got action and plenty in it. You've got suspense. You've got some really grisly effects, which have stood the test of time. But you've got some other effects which haven't. Optical effects where composited shots of them running past this amorphous shape, which has all tentacles and stuff, don't look good. And there are some stop motion elements in there too. But you've got to give them kudos for what they were attempting to do with it. There's a bit where a blob-like tentacle, like a really big flipper or paddle, hits someone who's running down the sidewalk, like that, stop motion, and then rises up, and their squashed body is on the underside of it as it peels back. But the practical prosthetic effects of the dissolved faces, there's people in the ceilings, there's people who are sort of, you turn them over and half their face is gone. There's loads of blood and snot and goo and chaos, and I really like it. Here's the soundtrack for it. Look, there you go. And there's a nice blobified victim. That actually is the boyfriend from, you know, early on, you know, in the first sort of third of the movie, whose arm gets pulled off, like. And but I think it's great. It's a wonderful, exuberant horror movie from the 80s. It's got everything you need there. Plenty of gore, plenty of over-the-top set pieces. You've even got a great standoff where Flag, he's got an M16 now, and you've realised that Dr. Meadows, or Professor Meadows, who's like, you know, obviously, we're very thankful to hear your story, young man. Thank you. You've been invaluable to us. Now just get in the back of this van and we'll take you back to town. And he's like, hang on, why? Why have you guys all got guns as well? Like, I think I'll make my own way back. I think you won't. Get in the back of that van. So he knows already that these people are not like on their side. They're not working for him, which only gets compounded when they start herding people in the town and all that. Like, and you know, there's a great big standoff. Flag gets up with an M16 like that, and like, you know, he's going, shoot him. And you got Briggs, the one from RoboCop, who's like, no, put that gun down. Flag, put the gun down now, and all that. And then all of a sudden, he realises, the deputy realises, why are these guys saying to shoot him? You know, he's just one of the... He's telling me that you guys are all bad. And although I didn't trust him before, I'm beginning to think, hang on a minute. And the fucking Blob comes up then. But they've all got... It's like a Mexican standoff. And it's good. You've got loads of little clever sequences. You've got bodies get broken in half and dragged through like windows. And they get dragged down the plug hole. You know, it's just... fucking amazing, some of the effects in it. It's quite outrageous. I have a really, really good time with it. I know I should have said at the start, hey, there's going to be spoilers here. But it's not a new film, you know, and I think the way I'm going to be with a lot of these movie reviews over the next few weeks is they're going to be quite in-depth. There you go. But this film, you know where it's going to go. I mean, you know, it's following the template of the original, but it's nowhere near as hokey. It takes itself a lot more seriously. You do care about the characters. It's cheeseball in some ways, but not a lot of ways. You know, it does take its premise quite seriously, and it's splendidly eerie. You know, the Blob is definitely it's a hideous bastard. You know, it's pure evil, and they do talk about that, like, you know, this isn't what we created. This is not what we had in mind, but it's meant to be a biological weapon. But this thing's gained its own sort of, you know, sentience. Like, again, there's a Quatermass feel to that. So it's gone out there and something else has happened to it, and it's come back, and it now has the ability to grow at an exponential rate. So it's not quite what they had in mind. But this Dr. Meadows thinks we can still contain it, you know. What about the townsfolk? And you just know, what's the next line going to be? You go, what about... But Dr. Meadows, what about the townsfolk? What about the inhabitants? And he just goes, they're expendable. He just knew. I saw this film when it first came out back in 1988. And incidentally, I saw it with the girl that would become Mrs. Kilt-Man. Yeah. And she wasn't into horror movies at all. Because we were just going out with each other. She, oh, come along. She also saw, at the same time, Halloween 4 as well. And we also saw... Cocktail with Tom Cruise, which she really fucking loved, but so did I. But I took her to see this, and I loved it, but I just knew she was like, a load of shit, because she loves realistic things, you know, kitchen sink dramas, that type of thing, you know, realism, documentary style, gritty stuff, like true life stories. No, I tried to tell her this was a true life story, but you know, she didn't believe a word of it. But I love it. I only recently encountered it again on Blu-ray. There it is on the Umbrella label. That's a Region B copy. It's uncut. There's a nice feature with the director, Chuck Russell, and you know, he goes fairly in depth on it. And they've got one of those great 80s trailers. Now it's coming for you. It's awesomeness. So, folks, there you have 1988's The Blob. There hasn't been too many other blobby type movies since the ones I mentioned earlier. This really does seem to be the last of its cycle. I know there's things like The Raft in Creepshow 2. What else have you got? There's probably other things as well which I'm not thinking of. but where there's blob-like substances. There was probably something in the X-Files very similar as well. But, you know, do yourselves a favour, seek it out, and you'll have a good time with it. You know, forget the macho posturing of Kevin Dillon, strutting around with his ripped jeans, you know, and his big, oversized leather jacket, and his super big hair. But he's a good character, you know, and he works well in the scheme of things. Folks, I'm going to leave it there. So I'm going to blob myself off. That sounds really rude. should have really thought that one through first of all. Anyway, in the meantime and in between time, you guys take it easy. Don't stick your hand down plug holes because you never know what's down there. Usually it's a fucking big spider. Anyway, enjoy yourselves, and I will see you all very soon. But in the meantime and the in between time, stay loose, keep it kilted, keep it Celtic, and I'm going to see you all later. Make a movie with strawberry jam.